Most succulent plants are found in regions where there is little rainfall, dry air, plenty of sunshine, porous soils and high temperatures during part of the year. These conditions have caused changes in plant structures, which have resulted in greatly increased thickness of stems, leaves and sometimes roots, enabling them to store moisture from the infrequent rains. While far fewer people these days write letters and therefore have less use for stamps, there are still a few categories of stamp which attract collectors. Stamps in common use for an indefinite period, until the price goes up, are called definitive issues, while a more collectible type of stamp is the commemorative issue, honoring people, events and anniversaries. Before the time of Alexander the Great, the only Eastern people who could be compared with the Greeks in the fields of science and philosophy were from the Indian subcontinent. However, because so little is known about Indian chronology, it is difficult to tell how much of their science was original and how much was the result of Greek influence. There are many kinds of pond, but nearly all are small bodies of shallow, stagnant water in which plants with roots can grow. Water movement is slight and temperatures fluctuate widely. The wealth of plants ensures that during daylight hours oxygen is plentiful. However, at night, when photosynthesis no longer takes place, oxygen supplies can fall very low. He was regarded as the foremost economist at that time. He was regarded as the foremost economist at that time. Please read the first 5 chapters to prepare for next week's tutorial. Please read the first 5 chapters to prepare for next week's tutorial. When the demand for the course rose, university authorities took on additional academic staff. When the demand for the course rose, university authorities took on additional academic staff. I will be in my office every day from 11 to 12. I will be in my office every day from 11 to 12. Students can download the lecture handouts from the course website. Students can download the lecture handouts from the course website. Being a vegan means not consuming any animal product. Being a vegan means not consuming any animal product. The university supplies a number of scholarships for those who have specific goals. The university supplies a number of scholarships for those who have specific goals. Please note the college laboratories will be closed for cleaning next week. Please note the college laboratories will be closed for cleaning next week. The aim of the work presented could be formulated as follows. The aim of the work presented could be formulated as follows. Students should take advantages of the Internet before attending the lecture. Students should take advantages of the Internet before attending the lecture. Applicants for the course preferably have a degree in English or journalism. Applicants for the course preferably have a degree in English or journalism. Opposition to the government tax policies is widespread across business sectors. Opposition to the government tax policies is widespread across business sectors. The following diagram gives information about a food chain. It shows how the process is done. According to this diagram, the first step is that bees pollinate flowers in the green tree, followed by the second step that small fish feed on those bees. You can see from this graph that the third step is that the small fish grow up into big ones. You can also see from this graph that the next step is that the big fish are eaten by a grizzly bear and fish bones remain. According to this diagram, the next step is that grizzly bears die and decay, and their skeletons remain, which nourish trees. The following diagram gives information about different species' upper limbs. According to the diagram, all species have 4 parts of bones: the yellow one, hand, wrist and fingers; the blue one, radius; the red one, ulna; the green one, humerus. We can see a human arm has the largest humerus and the longest radius and ulna. And a seal limb has the thickest bones while a bat wing has the thinnest bones. We can also see a bird wing has a lot of feathers, and a bat wing has a wing membrane, which help them fly. The following map gives information about the rainforest distribution in South America. According to this map, the largest part of rainforest is in Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, Suriname, which is tropical rainforest, colored with light green. We can also see an arrow, long stretch of tropical rainforest lying along the eastern coast of South America, next to Atlantic Ocean. And another stretch is located along the northwest coast of South America, next to Pacific Ocean. We see temperate rainforests in Chile, the southmost area of South America, colored with dark green. The following graph gives information about the formation of iceberg. The steps is snow, which comes down from the sky. The second step is snow turning into ice sheet on the bedrock, which is colored brown. According to this graph, the third the ice sheet continuing to stretch beyond the ground line into the sea, which means the formation of ice shelf. The fourth step is the ice shelf melting with warm ocean water. The final step is small part of the ice shelf coming off and iceberg coming into being. The following line chart gives information of median pre-tax income by age and gender in the UK. According to the graph we can see three lines, in which the blue one is male, the red one both, and the green one female. We can see male rises from 12,000 at under 20, reaches the highest point of 30,000 at 45 to 49, and falls to the lowest point of 18,000 at 70 to 74. We can also see female rises from 11,000, reaches the highest point of 21,000 at 30 to 34, and falls to the lowest point of 15,000 at and over. Finally both reaches the highest point of 25,000 at 35 to 39, and falls to the lowest point of 17,000 at and over. This line chart gives the information about product life cycle, in which sales vary in different periods of time. There are 4 phases in the line chart, which are intro, growth, maturity and decline. In intro, sales rise from 0, followed by growth, in which sales keep rising. In maturity, sales reach the highest point, and then in decline, sales begin to drop gradually. In conclusion, this line chart gives very thorough information about product life cycle. This picture gives information about the process of germination. In the first step, a seed is buried in the soil, before it develops its green embryo in the second step. In the third step, the seed coat begins to peel off and the black root begins to grow. After that, the light green cotyledon can be seen and the seed rises from the soil. Finally, the dark green foliage leaves grow. In conclusion, this picture tells how a seed grows. Aquaculture, the farming of fish, shrimp, shellfish and seaweeds, has been the sources of human protein for nearly 4,000 years, especially in Asia. In the last decade, however, there has been unprecedented growth in aquaculture production, more than 300% since 1984, which has increased the importance of the modern food supply. It's the world's fastest growing food production activity. And globally, more than 25% of the odd fishing and shellfish production in 1999 was attributable to aquaculture. Yes, this industry's contributions to human diet is actually greater than the numbers imply, whereas 1/3 of the conventional fish catch is used to make fish meal and fish oil. Virtually all farmed fish are used as human food. Today, nearly 1/3 of fish consumed by a human is the product of aquaculture, and that percentage will only increase as aquaculture expands the world's conventional fish catch. The oceans and lakes continues to decline because of overfishing and environmental damage. The Western countries' women, especially those under 30 years old, are becoming more and more reluctant to give birth to babies. However, the male's status in the society remains strong in recent years. The birth rates increased during 20th century, but it remained to decrease in the last 2 decades, reaching its historical low. In the year 2000, the birth rate remained at around 1%. There are even some negative birth rates in other countries. Birth rate dropped to its lowest point that has never been seen in the history. It also has impacts on male in the society, especially the young man, and it might have some connection with unemployment rate as well. This busy little town is named after Sir David's first cousin. It's also a Welsh language stronghold. According to the 2001 census results, 70% of the town's population could speak Welsh, but even here the language may not be completely safe. The Welsh Language Board expects last year's census results to show a fall in the number of Welsh speakers living in its northern and western heartlands. One of the main reasons for that, the board says, is migration. Many Welsh speakers are choosing to leave the country. At the same time, only a small percentage of those moving in can speak the language or choose to learn it. Historically, over the past 1788, Wales people have continually left in order to find better standard of pay, maybe in quality of employment, and the things have changed was probably is that there is a larger amount of English people now, who have found Wales of the last 20 to 25 years. Particularly this corner of Wales, and regarded as a desirable place to come and live in, as opposed to many areas in England, and cheaper as well. When trains or cars need to go through a mountain, where do they enter the mountain? When trains or cars need to go through a mountain, where do they enter the mountain? Tunnel. What can you see in a mirror or still water surface when facing them? What can you see in a mirror or still water surface when facing them? Reflection. Which one means not limited, infinite or finite? Which one means not limited, infinite or finite? Infinite. Which one deals with rules of language, grammar or literature? Which one deals with rules of language, grammar or literature? Grammar. What do you call a string of beads used for counting prayers, rosary or garland? What do you call a string of beads used for counting prayers, rosary or garland? Rosary. What do you call an animal living both on land and in water? What do you call an animal living both on land and in water? Amphibian. What do you call a disease which spreads by contact? What do you call a disease which spreads by contact? Contagious disease or infectious disease? Who test eyesight and sell spectacles? Who test eyesight and sell spectacles? Opticians. What is the short sleep in the afternoon? What is the short sleep in the afternoon? Siesta, or nap. What is the phrase used to describe the way something repeatedly increases and decreases? What is the phrase used to describe the way something repeatedly increases and decreases? Ebb and flow. What is the job title for someone who makes meals in a restaurant? What is the job title for someone who makes meals in a restaurant? Chef. What do you call the document that tells your qualification and work experience? What do you call the document that tells your qualification and work experience? CV, or curriculum vitae, or resume?
Mars is fourth planet from the Sun and the second smallest planet in the solar system after Mercury, named after the Roman god of war. It is often referred to as a red planet because the iron oxide prevalent on its surface gives it a reddish appearance. Mars is a terrestrial planet with a thin atmosphere, having surface features reminiscent both of the inner crater of the Moon and the volcanoes, valleys, deserts, and polar ice caps of the Earth. The rotational period and the seasonal cycles of the Mars are likewise similar to those of Earth, as it was the tilt that produces the seasons. Mars is the site of the Olympus Mons, the largest volcano and the second largest known mountain in the solar system, and the Valles Marineris, one of the largest canyons in the solar system. Until the first successful Mars flyby in 1965 by Mariner 4, many speculated about the presence of liquid water on the planet's surface. This was based on observed periodic variation in the light and dark patches, particularly in the polar latitude, which appeared to be seas and continents. Geological evidence gathered by the unmanned mission suggested that Mars once have large scale of water coverage on the surface on some earlier stages of existence.
English, as you've already read, is not a pure language. I don't think there really are any pure languages in the world, but English is definitely not a pure language. English, in fact, has borrowed from over 350 languages in its history. So it's a variety of many languages. Some people say it's like a dog, a Mongol dog, a dog that's been made up of many different dogs. The English language is like that. And by looking at the history of the English language, we learn about the history of the English people. The two things are closely connected. So in fact, today we're not only learning about language, but we're learning about history. And the fact that English has borrowed words from over 350 languages has been viewed differently throughout history. So, for example, in Shakespeare's time, people were very angry about words which were not, they thought, original English words, words which came from other languages. They didn't like them.
What if you could make your sleep more efficient? As a sleep scientist, this is the question that has captivated me for the past 10 years. Because while the light bulb and technology have brought about a world of 24-hour work and productivity, it has come at the cost of our naturally occurring circadian rhythm and our body's need for sleep. The circadian rhythm dictates our energy level throughout the day. And only recently, we've been conducting a global experiment on this rhythm, which is putting our sleep health and ultimately our life quality in jeopardy. Because of this, we aren't getting the sleep we need, with the average American sleeping a whole hour less than they did in the 1940s. For some reason, we decided to wear it as a badge of honor that we can get by on not enough sleep. This all adds up to a real health crisis. Most of us know that poor sleep is linked to diseases like Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, stroke, and diabetes. And if you go untreated with a sleep disorder like sleep apnea, you're more likely to get many of these illnesses. But did you know about sleep's impact on your mental states? Poor sleep makes us make risky, rash decisions and is a drain on our capacity for empathy. When sleep deprivation literally makes us more sensitive to our own pain, it's not so surprising that we have a hard time relating to others and just generally being a good and healthy person when we're sleep deprived.
Five. Listen to a discussion in a music history class. The class is studying improvisation.
Every jazz player knows what he or she means by improvisation, and all writers know what they mean by improvisation. The result, of course, is a lot of confusion and disagreement about what improvisation really is. We hear about the different types of improvisation: free improvisation, and controlled improvisation, and collective improvisation. What does it all mean? Yes, Mary?
My dictionary says improvise means to compose or recite without preparation.
That's true, but it tells us only part of the story. As we know, musicians learn how to play their instruments before they can improvise, so they do have some preparation. Yes, Arthur?
Maybe a better definition is composing and performing at the same time.
That tells us another part of the story. Let's try to understand it more by looking at history.
Loss.
Long-term exposure to noise can lead to loss of hearing. The relative loudness of sounds is measured in decibels. Just to give you an idea of what this means, the sound of a whisper is 30 decibels, while a normal conversation is 60 decibels. The noise a vacuum cleaner makes is around 85 decibels. The danger zone, the risk of injury, begins at around 90. Continual exposure to sounds above 90 decibels can damage your hearing. Loud noises, especially when they come at you every day, all this noise can damage the delicate hair cells in your inner ear. Lots of everyday noises are bad for us in the long run. For example, a car horn sounds at around 100 decibels. A rock band at close range is 125 decibels. A jet engine at close range is one of the worst culprits at an ear-busting 140 decibels. The first thing to go is your high-frequency hearing, where you detect the consonant sounds in words. That's why a person with hearing loss can hear voices, but has trouble understanding what's being said.
Now choose
Working together, they figured out that if the government was going to propose some kinds of significant tax increases, which is a good strategy, require me to at least lie something like getting something for those big tax brackets, not seeing any results. So the result of that was in the package of legislation that included the tax increases. There was some awesome information to have significant expansion of coverage families where they can buy into their private insurance. Rebuilding carbon-rich agriculture soils is the only real productive, permanent solution to taking excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. She's frustrated that scientists and politicians don't see the same opportunities she sees. This year, Australia will emit just over 600 million tons of carbon. We can sequester 685 million tons of carbon by increasing soil carbon by 0.5% on only 2% of the farms. If we increased it on all of the farms, we could sequester the whole world's emissions of carbon.
Well, Alex, the National Association of Realtors is at least putting the champagne on ice. The industry group says the slight rise in sales for previously owned homes shows the housing market is finally stabilizing, which is the first sign of a recovery. Now, that of course is an interpretation of the numbers, Alex, and one that's coming from an organization known for being somewhat of a cheerleader for the housing market, since its members are made up of realtors who've been losing a lot of money in the slump. Now, for a more sober view, I talked to Wellesley housing economist Carl Case, and he says the slight uptick in sales hardly offsets the fact that numbers are down 20% from the year before. A hurricane is a massive storm system. In fact, it's the most powerful type of storm on Earth. Hurricanes form over warm tropical waters and frequently move toward land. Before I forget to mention this, hurricanes are also called typhoons or cyclones. It depends on where exactly they form. Not all hurricanes are alike. Some are more powerful than others. Meteorologists have a rating system for them. They use the term category to rank. Every hurricane that forms the scale ranks hurricanes according to their wind speed and ability to cause damage. A Category 1 hurricane is the weakest. A Category 5 hurricane is the most powerful. A hurricane typically begins as a tropical storm. It has wind speeds between 50 to 100 km per hour. When the wind blows faster than 100 km per hour, the tropical storm has become a hurricane. A Category 1 hurricane's winds are between 100 to 130 km per hour. A Category 2 hurricane has winds up to 160 km per hour. Winds between 160 and 185 km per hour indicate a Category 3 hurricane. A Category 4 hurricane has wind speeds up to 220 km per hour. Anything above that is a Class 5 HUR. Again, thankfully, those are quite rare. They are simply devastating when they form and make landfall. Oh, by the way, before you ask, typhoons and cyclones use different measuring systems. So what I just described only applies to hurricanes. Okay, today's our first class. So I'd like to begin with some important definitions. We're going to use these terms all semester. So pay close attention to begin with. Chemistry is basically this study of matter. Matter is everything that makes up the universe. In this class, we're going to study the various elements and how they interact with one another. Sometimes they unite. When two or more elements unite, we call them compounds. Now, the study of chemical compounds is divided into two main branches of chemistry, organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry. Organic chemistry is the study of compounds that contain the element carbon. This basically covers it covers all living things. Carbon is an element all living organisms have in common. As for inorganic chemistry, it's the study of non-carbon-based compounds. There are 5 differences between organic and inorganic compounds. Listen carefully to these. First, there are more than 10 million carbon compounds. That's 10 times the number of inorganic compounds. Why are there so many carbon compounds? Mostly because carbon bonds easily with other elements. It can also form complex crews. Got it? Okay. Second, organic compounds melt and boil at lower temperatures than inorganic compounds. Third, organic compounds don't dissolve in water as easily as inorganic compounds. Fourth, organic compounds catch fire more easily than inorganic compounds. However, inorganic compounds conduct heat and electricity more easily. Finally, organic compound reactions take place, and slow rates than do inorganic compound reactions.
It's common sense that some objects are harder than others. We refer to this characteristic as hardness. But what exactly is hardness? Let me tell you. It's the ability of a material to resist being damaged, scratched, or marred in any way. There's even a way to measure it. It's the Mohs scale of hardness. A German scientist, a mineralogist named Friedrich Mohs came up with the scale in 1812. Here's how he made it. Mohs took 10 different minerals. Then he rated them from 1 to 10 based on their ability to withstand damage and to damage other materials. Talc received a rating of 1. It's soft, it's easily scratched, and can hardly damage anything. Diamond received a rating of 10. It's the hardest natural substance known to man. The other objects on the scale that number from 2 to 9 are gypsum, calcite, fluorite, apatite, feldspar, quartz, topaz, and corundum. I see worried looks on your faces. Don't worry about writing them down. They're listed on page 234 of your text. Take a look. Now, what about the hardness of other objects? It depends on which of the 10 minerals can scratch them. For instance, your fingernails get a rating of 2.5 on the Mohs scale. So talc and gypsum can't scratch them, but calcite can. What are some others? Let's see. Iron is rated between 4 and 5. Glass is between 6 and 7. And steel is close to 8.
Now let's talk video. Video and audio as a tool for mobile. And here's the thing. It also works beautifully for social media and web too. You kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Do you know why TV does so well and films do so well? It's a really easy answer. We humans react best to seeing pictures of other humans talking back to us and playing all these stories and whatnot. Yet you'll find that most of the web is text. Yet when I have a 4-minute video, it does better, or when I have a slideshow that has an audio track to it, they do so much better than all my other content because we need that. This is a flat screen. We need to liven it up somehow. This is a small screen. It's not easy to read lengthy text, but if I create a lengthy article and then I create a 3-minute video or a set of 3-minute videos about it, then I'm now just repurposed and I have something to use. I have differentiated from all my competitors, and I use a fancy QR code to link to these. Oh my God, we're innovating at the speed of, okay.
Good afternoon, Miss Davis. I was told by James that you wanted to see me in your office.
Oh, I did. Thank you for coming, Jean. Have a seat. How are you? Is everything going fine?
Yes, pretty much. What about you, Miss Davis? I haven't seen you for a while.
Yes, I was away for a while. Actually, I went to Arizona and met your mother there. Didn't she tell you about it?
No, she didn't, but that's great. How is she?
She is fine. To me, she is still as exuberant as she was 20 years ago. You will never know how great a teacher your mother was. Anyway, how was your semester?
It was fun. The teachers were nice, especially Miss McKenna. I loved her class. Strange, I never liked math and struggled so much until I met Miss McKenna.
That's great. How was she so wonderful?
She spoke softly and explained thoroughly. She answered all of the questions earnestly. I wish all my teachers were like Miss McKenna.
Many of her students made that comment in the past, too.
Who could have guessed that I could get an A in math?
Why not? You're smart. You can get an A in any subject you want as long as you try.
I believe so. I should have tried harder instead of giving up and neglecting the hard subjects.
In my opinion, Pocahontas was a spy for the colonists. Yes, she served as a mediator between the British colonists and the Native Americans, but she was more of a spy. As you know, she even provided vital food supplies to the colonists. However, she didn't think of herself as a spy, and the colonists didn't trust her much despite her help. In a way, we could say she was a sad spy. Unfortunately, a war broke out between the Powhatans and the colonists. The colonists captured her and brought her to Jamestown. While she was in Jamestown as a hostage, she freely converted to Christianity and married John Rolfe. As we all know, this marriage brought the war to its end. What do you think? Was she a mediator or a spy? I believe she was a spy who played a role as a mediator.
1. What role did Pocahontas play between the British colony and the Native Americans?
Earlier this year, I was driving through the countryside with a girl of 6, and she pointed out some flowers by the wayside. I asked her what she thought flowers were for. She gave a very thoughtful answer. 2 things, she said, to make the world pretty and to help the bees make honey for us. I thought that this was a very nice answer, and I was very sorry to have to tell her that this wasn't.
Stanford University.
We all get depressed. Bad stuff happens to us. We all get depressed. We feel lousy. We feel withdrawn. We feel sort of a sense of grief, and we're not taking much pleasure, and we withdraw. And then we get better. We cope. We heal. We deal with things in life. What's the deal with you that you can't do that? And there's this lurking sense, given that all of us have periods of being depressed and come out the other end, when you look at people who instead go down and stay down there to this crippling extent, there's always this little voice between the lines there of, come on, pull yourself together. We all deal with this sort of thing. I will make the argument throughout here that depression is as real of a biological disorder as is juvenile diabetes. And you don't sit down a diabetic and say, oh, come on, what's with this insulin stuff? Stop babying yourself and pull it together. You will see this is just as much of a biological disorder.
Parents and other adults with whom children have close contact have a powerful influence on children's food preferences. Children are very sensitive to the reactions of those around them, and if they see others enjoying a particular food, they will be inclined more favourably towards that food. Thus, if parents want to persuade their children to eat more vegetables, then rather than simply telling them what to eat, it's more effective to demonstrate that they themselves
Although the original American Indian cultures were highly diverse, they were similar in many of their traditions. Religious beliefs and rituals permeated every aspect of Indian life. Southwest tribes such as the Hopi and the Apaches had a rich and elaborate year-round sequence of ceremonials including songs, dances, and poetry. The Hopi performed dances to bring rain. The Apaches engaged in special dances and ceremonies to gain the support of the spirits before undertaking raids or going into war. The Plains tribes often sought contact with the spirits by going on a vision quest.
When societies were still mostly rural and agricultural, waste disposal was hardly an issue, partly because people tended to make use of everything, and partly because there was plenty of space to bury rubbish. It was when societies became predominantly urban and industrial that problems arose, mainly to do with health. City authorities had a hard time trying to find efficient ways of getting rid of all the rubbish. One of these was to get people to sort out their rubbish into different types, just as these days we are encouraged to separate our rubbish into different categories for easier removal and recycling. So, for example, kitchen rubbish was set aside and used for feeding animals. However, fears of disease put an end to that. In fact, it wasn't until the 20th century that all waste was simply thrown together and ploughed into landfills.
All industries can be thought of a system as input, process, output and feedback. All industries can be thought of a system as input, process, output and feedback. A national collection center for students is currently being built. A national collection center for students is currently being built. Parents today are more responsible for their children's education. Parents today are more responsible for their children's education. University departments carefully monitor articles and other publications by faculty. University departments carefully monitor articles and other publications by faculty.
Thanks for watching this video. For more updates by Career Coves, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.